All right. Bottom line, they're not going to be considering the nomination of Merrick Garland until at least after the November elections. Is that a good or a bad thing? Senator James Lankford, a Republican from the wonderful state of Oklahoma, and he's a wonderful state, joins us right now. Senator, good to have you.
Good to see you, Neil.
Do you agree with that? Republicans seem to be largely in agreement to this notion of waiting till after the election.
Sure. Yeah, this has been an ongoing historical precedent. Yeah, I heard you reference Vice President Biden before when he was chairman of the Senate Judiciary, that he had the same rule. This is not something new and radical. We're continuing to move on other nominations to lower courts. We're continuing to move on other cabinet officials. There was a nomination earlier this week. The Senate hasn't stopped working. We're still moving bills. I've heard this rhetoric all along that the Senate's suddenly going to take the whole year off and not going to work. That's absolutely absurd. We're moving on both legislation and other nominations. But a Supreme Court nomination is very, very different, especially in the middle of a contentious presidential race.
By that definition, if there gets to be big contentious stuff, Senator, you're telling the American people, we don't deal with that in an election year. Is that a good thing?
We haven't dealt with that in an election. This is not something new. No, this is something historical. It's happened over and over again.
In 1988, right. And I recognize that Ronald Reagan's two prior choices from the year before were rejected, and so it carried over in 88, but there is precedent to dealing with it in election year.
Sure, you can go back to 1968 when Democrats had control of the Senate and they didn't like who LBJ was putting up, and so they blocked out. So again, this is everyone's trying to portray this as somehow some new something is actually occurring.
No,
this
it's not.
Is very different.
I'm not in that
when you deal with the Supreme
I've seen
Court.
it done on both parties' parts. What I'm saying is maybe this is an opportunity for Republicans to stand up. We know we've seen Democrats do it. We know in the past we've seen ourselves do it. We're just going to stop this nonsense because we think, election year or no, we should deal with this. And if we don't like this guy, we're going to reject this guy. But we're going to do our due diligence and research him and his measures and his rulings, and then decide whether he's worth the fuss.
Sure, you could do that, but Republicans have already been on board to say this is the wrong direction to go in an election year. So we can drag his family through it. We can go through all the process. That is all the background, which is very intensive for a Supreme Court nomination, and just put him through that for nothing. At the end of the day, every Supreme Court nomination based on the Constitution is a 50-50 selection. The president has the first 50%, the Senate has the second 50%. And the president's trying to say it's the responsibility of the Senate to do consent. That's never been what the rule is. The Senate actually chooses the time. Is this the right moment to do this? Is this the right person? That advice and consent is a big issue. We've moved on a lot of other nominations for lower courts. We've moved on to other cabinet officials, but we don't think this is the right time to move on a Supreme Court. That's why we said it before the president even nominated, so whoever came into this process would know full well where the Senate stands.
All right, Senator, thank you very, very much.